welcome to another episode of Handy Hannah Home Improvement. Today I'll be teaching you all how to properly paint your walls. And where does it start but with prep? Let's go. The first step to prepping any wall for painting is to take a putty knife and work your way around the wall, scraping off any imperfections. Now, an imperfection can be a buildup of paint, so like a paint drop from a previous paint job that has just kind of solidified, or maybe painted over hair or debris or dust that got caught in the paint that's currently on the wall. So as you work your way around, it's good to walk around with a wet cloth as well to wipe down the wall as you go, say from cobwebs or the dust that I just mentioned that can get trapped in paint. You're actually also going to want to go around and find places that you'll need to fill in. And what you're going to use for that filling in is a lightweight spackling like this one here. So they sell spackling that starts as pink and then dries white, or just a regular white spackling like this one. It dries in about 20 to 30 minutes, after which you can go around with your sandpaper to sand it down and really flatten out the wall really well. So right here I have an example of something we're going to need to clean off. Just a little nick in the wall, similar to, I don't know, a nail hole. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just using my putty knife to scrape off as much of the paint and debris as I can, and then I'm gonna follow that up with my sandpaper. It's important that we use the sandpaper because what that's going to do is it's going to remove any additional paper or bits of debris from the damage on the wall so that it doesn't get stuck in our spackle, and so the spackle can have a nice seal on it. Now you'll notice that I'm using a piece of sandpaper. This actually is around from my sanding machine. And you'll see on the back, or maybe you can't see actually, it says P150. So this is a fairly lightweight, fine coarseness sandpaper. And the reason that it's not very rough, it's very fine, is because you don't want to use a rough piece of sandpaper on your wall. If you do, you're likely to leave lines from going back and forth. That's why it's also a good idea when you're sanding to go in a circle rather than back and forth. You may end up with lines that the paint will then get stuck in anyways, thus defeating the purpose of sanding in the first place. When you are sanding, it's best practice to wear a mask. Most of the products that you will use in home improvement have a little warning on it that says, hey, this causes cancer if you inhale it. So not so bad when you're putting the spackle on, but as you're sanding, it is really good to put a mask on and protect your lungs. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the spackle in this hole now that we have prepped it and sanded it and gotten the debris off of it. And I'm just gonna take about that much, and you can see it's a very tiny hole here. You can almost not even notice it on this video. But I'm gonna put that spackle right there over the hole, and I'm gonna do a press and scrape. And the press and scrape is just my method to push the spackle as far into the hole as possible before letting it harden. And I do this in several directions because you don't know if there's a little lip or additional break in the material. You want to make sure every little crack is filled. And so now that I've done that, I'm going to let it harden. It's really pretty easy. You really don't use a whole ton of material or spackle. This little thing of spackle has lasted me years. And now, once it's done drying in about 20 or 30 minutes, I can come back over here, use my sandpaper to sand out that little patch of spackle, and we'll be good to go. Next step, taping. So you can do this one of two ways. You can either lead it along while it's still on the tape roll, and you are going to want to get something nice like this 3M paint specific tape. Don't go getting just random tape because it could actually pull the paint off of your wall or not come off, and that's both bad situations. So you can either kind of measure and tear off a piece of tape, which is what I'm going to do, or you can kind of lead it along while it's still on the roll. But what you're going to do in this scenario is just go ahead and tape this to the top of your trim. In my mind, this is the hardest part of prep. And then you're going to go ahead and press this into the wall. And I try to leave a little bit of a gap. It's really personal preference as to how far from the wall the tape is, because again, this is going to act as your natural border. So I've just gone ahead and pressed that there. I like to kind of press on the angle as well, just to kind of help the tape stick. But like I said, this is going to guide your brush. So once you're done, you can just pull this up and you'll have a nice straight line. Now, if you're feeling brave, there is always the option, instead of taping your wall, to hand line it. So you can see here, I actually went and took a very little amount of paint on one side of my angled brush, and I just worked it into the corner here using just the brush. It's not a perfect line. I am not an artist. In fact, I messed up there and I'll have to touch up with the green. But it is a faster option if you don't want to spend the time taping. Additionally, if you're working with two different types of paints and you're doing it at the same time, you can't put tape on wet paint. So that was my situation, and so I just worked freehand. All right, so I've opened the paint can. You'll notice that I started with a flathead screwdriver, and since this is a previously open paint can, it was pretty stuck, so that did not work. It does work pretty well with a new can. So what I did end up using is my paint can key. I don't know the technical term, but it's actually shaped, as you can see right there. It curves up, unlike the flathead. So this actually gets up underneath the lid and allows you to pry it off. Handy little tool. So now that I've opened the paint, it can actually take a look. I'll hold my phone super tight. But it's pretty well mixed. You can't see a whole lot of separation there. Depending on how long your paint has been sitting since you brought it home from the store, it may or may not look like a bunch of little swirls in there, or pretty nice like this. So the longer you let the paint sit, the more likely you're gonna need to mix it. Okay, so once we have taped the wall, what we get to do is then start painting. Now, with your edge painting, the number one mistake that I feel people make is that they put too much paint on the brush. Now, when you're holding up your brush, if you put your two fingers from the top of the bristles, that's as far as your paint should ever go. A lot of people like to dip the entire brush in there, and one, you're wasting paint, and two, you're getting your brush so dirty that it's gonna be really difficult to clean. And surprise, surprise, you can reuse a brush. People toss brushes out like they're nothing. Clean your tools, people. All right, so if we take a look at the wall behind me, you can see there's a finished wall back there, which we will look at in a second, but you can see that I've gone ahead and painted the perimeter of this wall. Now, you can see here, it's pretty glossy and nice. This I've done 2 coats on. If I were to go back over here where we were just working in the corner, you can see this is a little more see-through. It's got a little, stripes in it. You're gonna need to do the trim probably at least 2 coats. I would recommend doing just the border 2 coats and then filling it in, because it's sometimes hard to see that you need a second coat once you've done the entire wall. And there you have it. Thanks so much for joining me today on the first ever episode of Handy Hannah Home Improvement, where we covered the basics of prepping your walls for painting. Hopefully you learned a little something, and hopefully you'll go ahead and hit that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Have a great day, and I'll see you all next time.